written on the back of your new book, which takes a very different approach on many narratives. Rochelle Simmons says, finally, we have a book that aims to fix the system, not the women. And I think when I was reading about why you wrote this book, Pay Up, the Future of Women and Work, I read that you wrote it from a place of, on one hand, anger, but also hope for change.
Yeah.
Why anger?
Well, listen, I mean, I as a mom, found myself 2020, started the year with Girls Who Code having a Super Bowl ad. I was going to teach more girls than I ever had before. I was having my second baby finally, via surrogate. And so I was really looking forward to once I was born, just spending that time with him and just hugging him and kissing him and just staring at him because I had missed carrying him in the womb. And then, a few weeks later, the pandemic hit. And I found myself having to take care of my newborn, homeschool my 6-year-old, and save my nonprofit, Girls Who Code, from being shut down. Because when pandemics hit, the first resources to go are to women and girls. My whole leadership team were mostly working women. And what we were saying to each other on the Zoom chat was just hold on. Because when September comes and the schools open, everything will be fine. And I remember that when that September came and I got that letter from our Department of Education, my son goes to public school in New York City, they announced this thing called, hybrid learning, where you got to log on your kid at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, all the while maintaining your full-time job. I thought two things came to my mind. The first one, which was incredibly naive, like, aren't they going to ask me? Because, in the United States, we have these time and use surveys. And so we knew in the early months of the pandemic who was doing the homeschooling. It was women. And so we knew that if we made a policy like closing down the schools, that it was invariably going to force millions of women to leave the workforce because they couldn't supplement, their paid labor. They were going to have to supplement their paid labor for unpaid labor. And so the fact that someone that I don't even know could make a decision that could affect my life on a dime terrified me. And then the second thing was you started seeing, again, over the course of the pandemic, 11 million women leave the workforce. And I knew from building Girls Who Code, because, Girls Who Code, I was trying to solve the gender gap in technology. But what people forget is that we didn't always have a gender gap in technology, that in the 1980s, we were pretty much almost at parity, and then we pushed women out. And so similarly here, you can't have women be 51% of the labor force and then become, in the 40s, again, percent of the labor force, and have all those women leave in 9 months and think that it's an on and off switch. So I remember well, where's the plan? Like, is the president going to get on and announce the plan that we're going to have to make sure that we don't devastate decades of feminism? And so there was no plan. And that's what really inspired me to start this movement. So I wrote an op-ed. I often, Stephen, when I get angry, write and then just post articles. And I made the mistake, or actually, it was the best thing that ever happened, is I read the comment section.
Uh-oh.
And my op-ed was that we need a Marshall Plan for moms. And when I read the comment section, people on the left were like, well, what about the dads? And I was like, even though, again, men had not been pushed out of the labor force, because this was, from a data perspective, solely affecting women. And then people on the right, well, motherhood's a choice. So you don't get to have affordable childcare or paid leave or any structural support because you chose to be a mom. And it was the first time I was like, wow, motherhood is controversial. And I kind of had that same sense that I had when I started Girls Who Code, like, this is a problem that needs solving. Again, especially for women like our mothers. My mom, when I was a kid, I was a latchkey kid from the time I was 7. And my parents couldn't afford the $50 a week for childcare. And so from the time my sister and I were 7 and 10, she would pick me up from middle school and we would go home. Now, remember, I told you that we lived in this neighborhood that didn't really want any brown families there. So we wouldn't walk home, we would run home. And then we would open up the door and close it and we would hide in the closet because we were terrified. And I think about how my mother felt every day at 3:45, knowing that her babies were running home because they couldn't afford childcare, and the unconscionable choices that mothers of color, have to make every single day because we don't make it possible for them to be mothers and have a job. And so that is when I was just like, all of this girl boss equalities that express change in corner office, it's just all about you, was like, that's a lie. And I've been selling this lie for the past 10 years. And if we're really going to get to equality, we have to fix the systems.
There's a really staggering stat in chapter 4 of your book that says that women are now spending more time on childcare than they did in, I think it was 1980.
Yep.
Which is pretty staggering, because I thought one would think, based on all the noise that I've heard about equality and all of these things, that women would be spending less time on childcare than 1980.
Yeah. It's because we're in this moment of intensive parenting. Think about my parents didn't even know where I applied to college. They didn't know what I was doing at homework. It was just like, go raise yourself, right? Now, we're taking our kids to Spanish, Hindi, and Chinese. You're learning 3 languages, going to piano class, basketball class. I mean, we're constantly on top of our kids because that is the societal expectation, that we have to intensively parent our children at the expense of our own mental health. And we also have to be completely on as workers. Again, we're in this hustle culture where you're constantly driving, at work. And so if you're a working woman, you have these 2 huge expectations that you basically have to meet, and it's exhausting. And it's why we have a mental health crisis. 51% of mothers say that they're anxious and depressed. The CDC released a study saying that the subgroup that is suffering the most anxiety and depression are, working women. You're seeing this in the UK. It's an alcoholism, Adderall addiction. It is on the rise, rising suicide rates of mothers. Mothers don't break, but they're broken right now. And young people feel like they can easily talk about their mental health and how they're feeling. But it's not, again, you don't hear mothers talk about that. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to be martyrs, essentially, or have it all together. And so there's no outlet for us. I say in my book, when working women make a list, it's like their kids, their partner, their pet, and then themselves. We are last on the list. We do no self-care. And society doesn't expect that we should be doing that. It's seen as being a bad mom or being selfish when we spend time on ourselves.